So when did we first meet?
Did I not go to your house?
In Scotland. I did have memory loss before making a Wes Anderson film. He does not take any prisoners if you forget your lines. You know that in our house you are described as my tiny child.
Am I?
So when did we first meet? Which
I wanted
Wes
to ask
Anderson
you that
film was
because
it?
did I not go to your house?
Where? In Scotland.
I think so. I did many years ago. Was Robbie Coltrane at all there, or did I go to Robbie's place?
I think you must have gone to
But,
Robbie's house.
Do you have an auger
We
stove?
do.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe everybody in
We
Scotland
do.
has one. No,
yeah.
I
people
feel
who want to
like
stay warm.
before we worked together, I somehow someone I was working
I would
with
have
knew.
remembered this.
I feel like, and I visited your house very briefly in the
Was it
countryside.
near
kind
Glasgow?
I was shooting in Glasgow.
I think it's Robbie. I think it's Ledlewin.
It might have been.
Anyway, you've been to Scotland,
Anyhow,
which
I've
is
been
a
to
start.
Scotland, which I loved. Yes, yes.
What were you doing with Robbie?
I did Brothers Bloom, which is Ryan
Oh,
Johnson's film.
okay.
Okay. He's wonderful and he's funny.
Okay.
I've always felt
Beg
like
to differ. I think I would remember if you'd been to our house.
I think I would too. But I feel like I've been there with Sandro. I feel like I've been.
You've been painted by Sandro.
I know,
my
no, but I
sweetheart, through
remember
Skype.
exactly
so
where
you've
he's painted
essentially
me.
been in our house.
No, but I feel like I've seen you guys.
Maybe I'm wrong.
It was
happened
a
before.
long time ago. Well, I'm often.
But when did when can I remember us first meeting? I remember going to see the Darjeeling Limited in New York at the New York Film Festival, and after that writing to Wes.
Oh.
It was I sent.
Is that how you got your job?
That was me
I should
canvassing.
Do that. I should
no,
do that more often.
I just couldn't not. It was a proper fanboy letter saying, dude, this is the real deal. That film, and you
that
particularly
movie.
in that film,
Thank
talking
you.
of suffering, that was a heartbreaker. And so then we made Moonrise Kingdom together, but was it
I think
the
so.
Grand
I think
Budapest?
it was Grand Budapest.
When we were mother and
I think
son.
that was our introduction, yeah.
And we were in Germany,
Yes.
all living together in that hotel. And
What was
the
that
golf
name of that
buggies.
town? It was on
was
the board. It was a
fantastic.
great town.
It was
All the
such fun.
houses, speaking of architecture, all the houses looked like faces.
Yes.
Do you remember those?
Yeah.
The attic windows were all kind of in this very
and
kind
it was
of
right
eye
against the
and
Polish
mouth face.
border. There was a river.
Yeah, we used to walk
Poland on the other
over. I
side.
don't know if you did that. We'd walk across the border and go to Poland for
Yeah.
a shot of
Yeah.
Zabrovka, Polish vodka, and then come back.
And Jeff Goldblum, who was only in like one scene, just stayed
Took
there
over.
for about 5 months.
He brought a
and just-
keyboard
Yeah.
and would play in his. We all Wes's movies. We all live in the same
Yeah.
house together at some
Yeah.
way or another.
And hang out.
And hang out, which is
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes.
I love that.
And then the French Dispatch. We were in Spain. No, we were in France, in Angoulême.
Angoulême,
And then
which I love.
in Asteroid City, we were in Spain.
I see your memory's good.
Yeah, it's coming back.
Yeah. So I guess I didn't go to your house.
I did have a terrible post-COVID memory loss just before making a Wes Anderson film, and that was not pretty.
Really?
Because he does not take any prisoners if you forget your lines.
Oh.
Have you ever had that experience?
Not with him. No,
Yeah.
I'm too petrified of. I
Yeah.
know how specific he is, so there's
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
I've had many sleepless nights doing this play right now, like literally waking up numerous times in the night, saying lines.
Yes, I'm
Waking
sure.
up with
Good.
my lines.
You know that in our house you are described as my tiny child,
Am
because
I?
you are actually
Oh.
my tiny child.
Yes.
In the Grand Budapest
Yes.
Hotel. I'm your mother, your
Yes.
ancient mother.
I forget that you could possibly be.
That
my
I
mother,
birthed
but
you.
You did
did.
bring me to life.
Yes.
What a child I've become.
What a child you've become. I'm very proud of you.
You are? Thank you. I'm proud of you.
How is your mother, by the way?
My
Your real
mom
mother,
is good, who loves you.
who I love.
Yeah.
She's a great photographer.
I love her photo of you. It's like this very iconic image. It'll come up in one of the handfuls. She has like Basquiat and you and several other, Tom Waits.
Wow.
And you come up in the
Wow.
Google search of Sylvia's work, you and
Wow.
my mother's work. Sylvia Plahe.
Amazing.
She's amazing.
Did she photograph you when you were young?
Yes, she photographed me my whole life. And she also, which I find definitely made me comfortable with the presence of a camera.
Yeah.
At least until I become somewhat known, and then there were paparazzi, and then it kind of tarnished it in a weird way. It was a very strange thing. The lens was always there, and there was never a need to do anything different. It was just
And it was in the
present.
hands of someone
And
who
it was-
loved
and it
you
was
and who
exactly,
you love.
It was exactly.
But it feels to me like, thinking now, that's a really great introduction, or rather encouragement, to be a film performer, to be photographed by
Yes.
your mother.
And not only that, she had an assignment to photograph the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and then saw that they had a program for children and a weekend program, and then saw these kids and had the intuition that she saw them and said, that's what you do every day. You are an actor. And it's amazing. The rest is history.
What is it that she saw? What is it that you were doing every day?
Well, I was an only child.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am an only child. But I was, as children are, I was quite imaginative. And I have a tendency of absorbing things that I see. And I see a parallel with her nature. She sees something very interesting and usually has the right camera for the right moment and manages to capture that. And I'm lazier and I don't carry the equipment, but I see it, and then I continue to watch, and I continue to watch things unfold, not to study it for any reason, but as a pure curiosity. And then those are somehow emotionally seared into me, those mannerisms or moments or things that are unique to a circumstance that I find incongruous with the circumstance or the person or revealing, and then I retain that. And then, of course, as an actor, there's great purpose for all of that.
So she saw you grazing.
I think so.
Yeah.
And reenacting, like if we encountered someone on the street or on the train, and then I would come back and tell the story again of how this person did it, and how, in a very kind of animated way. That's my recollection of it. But I think she also didn't want me to hang out with the kids on the block all the time and get into trouble. And this was one activity that seemed
Wow.
spoke to her. But thank goodness.
I was going to say,
Thank
you wouldn't
goodness.
have sorted out.
No way. We knew she had one friend who was an actress, and the lovely person who got me an audition for the youth department at her agency, and I auditioned, and they agreed to send me out, and I booked some work relatively.
And was that training for theatre? Did they train you for cinema at all?
I got work off-Broadway very young, and that kind of gave me my theater training. But there was a lot of technique. I mean, I went to performing arts as well, and I studied, and much of it is very useful, and some of it is
Technical meaning you had cameras? Were you working
No,
with,
not no.
cameras?
Technical meaning
Voice
Uta
and
Hagen
things
and Stanislavski and voice and movement, etc. But more, I guess, kind of groundwork to have some technique to rely upon. But
And do you rely on it? I'm so curious. I never trained it in any way.
It's
so
a very interesting thing, because I'm not dismissive of it, because I do think they're very valuable tools, and great actors rely on it. There are techniques of using, sense memory, emotional recall, etc., that you do innately, and that I do innately. You don't need to have a name necessarily to do it. You just need, I guess for me, whatever I can do to feel more connected, the less I have to work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And work at creating an internal illusion that I'm connected, which, because if I have to start acting as if I'm connected, it's over. The whole thing feels terrible for me, and then that's not why I want to do this. I want to kind of, as you do, transform, feel, step into another life.
I think what you call connected, I would call relaxed. It's
Yes,
just any
present,
way
yes.
of being,
Yes.
and to not work, to not feel like there's an edge, and to feel that you're free enough to be receptive, so that you can kind of play and stay alive.
Yes.
It is my understanding that many of the sites of my projects had survived. They remain there, still in the city.
So, The Brutalist, many congratulations, by the way. That's a great achievement. I mean, it's an amazing achievement on behalf of everybody involved. It's a really monumental piece of work, and apparently came in under $10 million, which I find I mean, I'm sorry to be
It's a
vulgar
feat.
and talk about money, but that is, you know, to make a really properly kind of cinematic, monumental, epic piece of work like that, and to make it, you know, affordable is a huge achievement. And for you to hold it in the way that you do is super beautiful.
Thank you. It's a real achievement. I'm very impressed with Brady, Corbet, our filmmaker, and Mona Fastfold, his wife and creative partner, and not only what they've created and all they've done to cultivate this beautiful film and storytelling, but the vastness of it and the artistry, and it feels very masterful. He's a very young man. He's in his 30s, Brady.
It's vast, but it's really all about, I would say, your face, but it's not just your face. There's something about an innate sort of proposal that you give us at the very beginning, which is the suffering of this man. And that just carries us all the way through the film. So knowing that that was the task, how did you root yourself, knowing that you were going to have to go for that long, all the way carrying that suffering?
I find stepping into the shoes of someone is very palpable what he is forced to come to terms with, and what is the nature of the storytelling in this film is very moving to me for many reasons. In one respect, I'm playing a man immigrating to the United States with all the hopes and dreams of starting anew, and this very much aware of this disconnect between the reality of that, the harsh reality of that American dream, the myth of that, and also yet what he's leaving behind, all the kind of atrocities of the war and oppression and creative oppression as well.
But also his achievements and his identity.
They're removed from him.
They're removed.
They're all stolen, and I think as much as it is a theme of the film that he has this vision to leave behind some lasting work that speaks to the traumas of the past, that holds that it also is merely about a man just toiling through poverty and trying to come alive again, you know, and has to rebuild his foundation and his separation, his forced separation from his wife, who Felicity Jones did so beautifully, and comes in, and she's a real pillar in that. She helps enable him to have that strength. But I guess finding and connecting to the suffering of others is, I don't want to say it's easy, because it's not, but there's so much of it at our disposal, and there's too much of it, and any time that I see it woven eloquently into a way that you can find parallels in all of our lives, that much like your film, coming to terms with these things that need to be discovered and rediscovered.
I think it's a good thing to say easy. I think it's a good thing to find it easy, because that's what compassion is, and empathy. And that is a large part of our work, I think, is to be able to feel easy
I agree.
about stepping into any experience, but particularly suffering. Because if we don't acknowledge that it could be us, then there is immediately this massive wall, and people who suffer are just unportrayable. But there, but for the grace of God, go all of us
Exactly.
in all these situations.
Audrey, Attila's Catholic wife, does not want us here. She does not want us here.
I also witnessed my mother. My mother is a Hungarian immigrant. I'm not sure if you know, but so my mother fled Budapest in 1956 with her parents, my grandparents, and I witnessed how hard it was for them, that journey, and how they were outsiders and foreign, and how language and accents prevented assimilation in a way, and how that's paved a way for my creative freedom as an American boy born in Queens and have opportunities. And it's fascinating to me, but it's very personal to me, and it honors many people's trajectory or family ancestral journey to this country.
But that must have felt like it's such a blessing
Yes,
for you
yes,
to
I
have
feel
the
grateful.
opportunity to reflect your own family's story
I
and
wish
their
my
experience.
grandparents were around.
But your mother has seen it, of course, and must be, she's reverberating with it, I'm sure.
First of all, your work always is just so moving and truthful and alive and artistic and you and yet not you, and your soul is apparent and you transform into these all sorts of wonderful characters. But this film that you did with Pedro, I think a lot about mortality now in a way that I never thought about. I mean, I wonder if you had prior to this, and as we lose people in our lives, as we get older, I find not about death, but about life and about what I have the space and who I have the space for, and what I want to do with my time here, and who I want to spend that time with.
These are all wise reflections.
Yes, it's come with age
Good,
and
good.
with
No,
experience. But
Good.
I think when you embody someone like you did, that is forced to come to terms with their demise and to take action in that, and kind of, I respect it. I respect it's a very complex decision.
There are very few women war correspondents. War is a man's thing. You have to sort of become one of the guys, and it was never a problem for me. I've always lived like a man.
It would weigh on me in lots of ways, in the way that I contemplate things. It may free you in lots of ways. I'm really curious to that, how that feels for you, and what that process is like.
As I was suggesting, The Brutalist has been for you an extraordinary blessing of an opportunity for me, because it's an incredibly personal film for me. I've had the opportunity and the privilege several times in my life to be in the position of Ingrid, the woman who Julianne Moore plays in the film, who is the friend, who is asked to be the witness, who is asked to be the companion, who's asked to be in the room next door. I've had that honor, and I've learned from the Marthas in my life, not only how I might in the future have wanted to play Martha, but my own attitude to my own death. And it's really been, as I say, an enlightenment for me. And so to have the opportunity to step into those shoes and be the person in the hot seat, to be the person who is mortally ill and very clear that she wants to live right up until the final whistle, the most self-determined life she can, and makes this decision, which for me, in my understanding, is a triumphant decision. It's a decision to prevail against all the odds. Was a really extraordinary opportunity, because I've seen so many people in my life at very close quarters take that step.
Take that step.
Take that step into embracing their own mortality,
yes.
and in several cases actually taking that step into their own hands. But also with beloved people who, you know, it's out of their hands, but they're going anyway. Just to be there, I know from them how valuable that is.
But there was a real strength in your, there was a serenity and acceptance that is was very honest and very relaxed with the circumstances.
I'm very pleased to hear you say that, because it had to be that. We knew, I mean, Pedro has made, this is his 23rd feature film, and, you know, so many times, isn't he?
I think it's amazing. He's an
He's a
amazing
master.
person and wonderful
He's a
filmmaker.
real master artist of our age.
Films, yeah.
And so many times he's working within a kind of atmosphere of what he calls Baroque. The colours are always very
yes,
bright,
I
always,
was
even in
gonna
our
ask you
film.
about that as well,
But
so.
there's a quietness in this film, which he was clear from the beginning that he wanted to approach. I mean, in all his films, it doesn't matter how Baroque or ridiculous they are, the emotion is always real.
Yeah.
And however much people are screaming at each other or pulling their wigs off, there's always a true feeling of connection and just a kind of authentic life going on in his world. But this one, there's very little. There aren't many bells and whistles around this. It's for the most part 2 women, 2 locations, and 1 man, and some birdsong, and very, very serious conversation as well. There are no dramatics. This is one of the things I was so enthusiastic about. There are no dramatics in this film. There are no dramatics around death.
Not in your storyline. There is some
No.
dramatics, but not as it pertains to you and Julianne. And,
Yeah.
Where are you? You at home?
Yeah, I'm watering the plants.
I thought you had someone who did that for you.
I do.
But today I felt like doing it, and I'm enjoying it.
Okay, good.
I loved the relationship that you two have, and I thought it was really, really very special. I love her work as well, and all her work. I mean, I you know, we kind of encounter each other on these on this road show, but I've always been kind of deeply
She was the
impressed by
only
her.
person that I could think of who
She's so
would
special.
play Ingrid, because she has that capacity to be a sort of portal to decency.
Yeah, you both do. You
Well,
both have this.
but she's, and Pedro and I were very aware. We were making a film set in America. It's very much a Spanish film, but a
Yes,
film set in
I know.
America with Americans. But Pedro and I are aliens, certified aliens, and we needed someone who was a portal to a kind of America, and that's Julianne Moore right there. And we were
It's
so
interesting.
happy that she agreed to do it and brought exactly this witness that
It's a
that
very
we were
hard
looking
role.
for.
It's a very
Yeah.
challenging role.
To sit and
actually.
listen.
Yes.
And to stay responsive, that's really something, yeah.
And to allow all the complexity to wash over you constantly,
Yeah.
and to relinquish this attempt for control that
Yeah.
you found clarity with knowing the stop date is
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
And it's much harder when someone is alive.
Well,
trying
I
to-
think it is. I mean, I often think that, and friends of mine and loved ones who have been, you know, facing their own death, have very often said to me, "It's easier for me. You're in the difficult position," and so sitting and witnessing is very often the more traumatic position, and surviving.
Does it change you after? I feel lingering aspects of characters, of the many lives I've lived, live on with me, things I've understood as a result of them. They live on, and they don't really go. Do you feel that way about the, I mean,
In
you've played
this
so many vast
instance-
different, some are easier to let go of certain things, but does this free you in a way? Does it remind you of the
It frees me in
precariousness
that
of life?
I feel satisfied that I have been able to place in a film something that I feel so enthusiastic about, but I feel so connected to. And I've been able to sort of pay homage in a way. It's a very personal homage to all the Marthas that I've sat with. But the other aspect that I feel really released by is that what Pedro was asking for was me to really bring myself to it and my own responses. I mean, as you know, since I am your aged mother, very often I'm kind of goofing around with wigs and teeth and funny faces. But this was really about a kind of absolute authentic response. And I'm not a war correspondent. I never have been, and I'm happy to say I'm not estranged from my daughter. And I'm also happy to say that currently I'm not aware of being terminally ill. But beyond that, Martha and I, we're pretty close.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I was going to bring up that I felt that you enjoy the fun that can be had with character work, and it's a joy to watch you and interact with you. I don't want to digress, but I loved when we were working together with Wes, and I remember you were there, and Lois Smith was there, and had to do this epic monologue that she nailed, and the way that he shot it had to land on me, and then there was all this kind of crazy movement
and
in
you'd
front
kind
of
of broken your back or something at that point.
Probably,
something
yeah, I think
terrible
something-
on that day, yeah, which you were very, that was proper
I
acting.
usually do something, but I didn't want to veer off too much, because I did want to share with you, because I felt that I saw you. I guess I saw the truths that you've experienced that you would probably be able to convey without those experiences, but I saw something very personal within you in this in particular that I loved.
You want to come to the store with me?
Maybe another day. So nice here. I'd like to stay if you don't mind.
No, of course not.
How was it with Pedro in an English-speaking film? Because he hasn't done much of that, has he?
I was asked by him in the depths of COVID to make a short, which was his first English language film. And I will say, and he won't mind me saying this, that then, and that was July 2020, when everything was locked down, we were in Madrid, all masked up, for 9 days making this short, which is an adaptation of Jean Cocteau's The Human Voice. And his English was not as fluent as it is now. So it was an amazing leap of faith.
In 2020?
In 2020.
I mean, I feel like I've had, maybe we'd been drinking or something, but I feel like he spoke English quite
There's a
well
fluency and
a decade ago.
There's
or more.
yes, but I think when he works, I mean, he said that when he was very trepidatious for very good reason about actually shooting in English and shooting English language. I realized then, and this was very much borne out in the room next door, that he's not really operating in any language. He's operating in a kind of music and in a kind of energy.
You see that in
and
his
also
visual
in cinema.
storytelling.
Exactly,
Yes,
the frame is his language.
It's so interesting.
And also we on that film when we had less language in common, we used to speak in terms of film. You know,
references of films,
you know, a little bit more Dark Victory here, and
Lovely.
you know, all of
that's
that.
fantastic, by the way.
That's a proper
that's
language.
really fantastic.
And now he wrote this feature film in English with a proper American, several proper Americans. Amazingly brave. But what we've learned, and now speaking to our Spanish friends, is that even his Spanish films are not really the Spanish that people speak. That's not Spain. That's Almodovaria.
Got it.
And people are speaking Almodovarian,
Almodovarian.
as we were in our English version. And he could make a film in Farsi and it would be the same, I've no doubt. There are certain shapes and architecture
I was going to say it's
his
quite,
films.
and,
You know, people meet, usually when they haven't seen each other for a long time, and then they say, "How are you?" and then somebody speaks for 8 minutes.
I notice a certain formality too in
Yeah.
establishing shots, etc. That
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd remembered them in past films, but I found them very, and maybe they were intentional in this, but I noticed them more.
They are, and I'm sure you're not alone, and I'm sure that an Anglophone audience is going to find them a little arresting because they're not naturalistic. He's not really a naturalistic filmmaker at all.
I love, by the way, all the reflected imagery. I love that so much, and I love the visuals in the film, and the color palette that you are juxtaposed against worked for you very well, and the chaise lounge, whatever it was that he would find, it just was quite wonderful. But and obviously the use of bouquets and flowers and life through that in the background of you, and
That's Pedro.
yeah. What I really love, there's one moment that we can talk about other things beyond this, but I really loved the moment when you forgot the pills and you had to go back. The idea of saying, I've come to terms with this, I've
locked up
made
my
peace
flat.
with it.
I've left New York.
You're okay, you can read my memoirs, I don't care because
Yeah.
I won't be here,
Yeah.
and that's the past.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
you came back to life
Yeah.
and had to go back
Yeah.
and set foot in it, and
Yeah.
it moved me. It was very both jarring and a reason to keep fighting to live, to
Yeah.
fix what you've left behind somehow, to
But you know, as you're saying this, Adrien, I'm thinking of you in The Brutalist, and I'm thinking of that journey and that whole thing we talked about before of leaving your entire history and identity behind. He's a ghost in his own life when he arrives in America, isn't he?
he's a shell.
Yeah.
There are wonderful parallels of the structure, the brutalism in it of itself, of this kind of forward thinking in opposition to the past almost, and a kind of rawness, a use of kind of materials in a kind of practical sense, in these kind of cavernous open spaces, and I always saw he's quite a shell, haunted shell of his past, and in this structure he's made, you know, this kind of fortress-like walls that are created, and elements that echo concentration camps, and yet this tall ceiling heights to provide the ability to look up and to dream, and even the spiritual component of having the cross and the
negative
light,
space.
the negative space, and the light coming in to shine in and bring in some communion with something greater than us, that to hopefully pull us out of these walls that confine us. I loved all of that. I relate to all of that.
Well, this has been too short.
It has been too short. Let's
Very strange
let's
catch
pick
up
this
in
up.
front
I
of
know.
several cameras.
It is very strange.
But then you have to come to our house in Scotland.
I will
That's
come.
clear.
Yes.
And check out whether you know it or not.
Yes.
I bet you don't.
I feel like I've been there, but I will.
Okay.
I would love to visit.
I think I would have forgotten.
I've really enjoyed getting to sit with you and with
Lovely.
you know,
We'll
catching
sit,
up.
We'll
and
sit with less cameras next
yeah,
time.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.